Well, this is a bit of a different top 11. This is my top 11 Amstrad CPC games. My personal top 11. So this is not a general thing. It's not a poll or anything like that conducted by the Amstrad fans. It's just my opinion. My top 11. My personal top 11. And how many times do you want me to say that? It must be the fact I'm constrained within the Amstrad monitor here. So, we'll start with number 11. And number 11 is Manic Miner. So this was released in 1983 by Bug-Byte and went on to software projects as well, had involved in later releases, of course developed and written by Matthew Smith. And it is the first game that we saw Miner Willie. Yeah, Miner Willie. I would stand up, and because I have... No, I wouldn't do that. I won't do that game. But I am picking this. It's relatively simple. It's a single screen platform game, but I played this absolutely insanely. I got to the point where I was obsessed about completing it, and this is way before the time of the internet and way before even magazines. I mean, I was reading magazines at the time, but they didn't have many tips and stuff. You learnt the hard way. So I learnt the hard way, and many deaths were attributed to levels like the Skylab landing bay and levels like the infamous Attack of the Mutant Telephones. And I managed to get to a point where I could always get to the warehouse, and that fucking level drove me insane, and it took me the best part of probably 2 years to work out how to do that level, and eventually I could work out how to do it. And that's the reason why I'm picking it straight off. I mean, it's not brilliantly flashy graphics or music or anything like that. I mean, it's got music, and it's got a nice little tune, Hall the Mountain King playing, and it's simple graphics, but it's effective, and it's gameplay. It's implemented so well. Obviously, it's more, people think it's more famous on the Spectrum because of the Spectrum version came out before the Amstrad version. But for my money, this Amstrad version is better. But I would say that, wouldn't I? But anyway, that was my number 11 pick. So, going on to my number 10 pick. And that is the blue-masked boy wonder himself, Bomb Jack. Now, Bomb Jack obviously was based off the arcade version, and it came out on the Amiga and ST as well, and of course the Spectrum and the Commodore. But I had Bomb Jack very early days in my Amstrad adventure, and I got to play it a lot and got to master it a bit. Long gone the days I would be able to remember the sequence of how to get all the sparking bombs in order of every single level. Long gone those days. But I do remember the fantastic effects on the opening screen, on the menu screen, with this rolling graphic demo effect going through it. It's really lovely, and the sound effects of it just ring in my head all still now today, and all this and things like that, where the invulnerability disc would spin around. I always thought that was an amazing effect at the time. It just looked like, wow, amazing effect at the time. And I just ended up loving the game. I just ended up loving the game completely, and we'd mess around with it and see what different combinations of bombs we could pick up, and how far though you could take the piss of the enemies, and how close you could get to them before the slightly dodgy hit detection would activate. Sometimes it was a bit unfair, but I don't care, because I thought it was pretty, it was good looking, it was faithful to the arcade. And I played it before the arcade version anyway. So when I got to play the arcade version, I was actually not very familiar with it and the way it played. I was so enamoured with the way the Amstrad version played out and controlled and responded. So it's something that's one of my very, very favourite games on the Amstrad. So let's move on to number 9. And number 9 is a game which not a lot of people have heard of, I don't believe. And it was done by Vortex Software in '86, I think. And it's a flying airplane simulation game known as Tornado Low Level. Or as TLL for the abbreviation. And it's a tough game, and it's one of those games where I initially hated it. When I loaded it up, I thought, I can't do this. This is just, the controls are so touchy. I can't hit these targets. I can't work it out. I can't land. That was the biggest thing. It was got to a point where I'd get all the targets, and I thought, now I've got to land, and I can't land. And when the fuel buzzer goes off, the fuel buzzer, I can't land. I couldn't work it out, but eventually I did. I worked out how to land and how to line it up and how to do all the tricks in the game. Again, some of that is just disappeared nowadays, but I can still get to mission 4, mission 5, okay-ish. Mission 5 is getting to mission 5 is hard, because mission 4 is tough. The targets to hit in the sea, especially, are so hard. But it's a whole map, basically. You've got a whole map. You've got no preloading in this game. One map that basically loops round in all 8 directions, and you're flying your top down. You're flying the tornado, and the fact that the higher you go, and then you go into the swept wing. The swept wings go back, and you're zooming around like a nut job. And you've got to low down, and when the wings come out, it's so clever. I found it really, really clever at the time that it did that. It was quick, it scrolled so nice. It was one of the first Amstrad games I ever saw that scrolled that smoothly. It's basic looking, certainly, but it doesn't need to be over the top. It's got good colour, it's got good solid blocks of colour, and it's easy on the eye, and it's very, very easy to play. And when I say easy to play, I mean pick up and play, not to master. No. Getting through mission 1 is a mission in itself. It really is. But there we go. So yeah, Tornado Low Level is my number 9 pick. So going on to number 8. So my number 8 pick is Quarry Warriors. Originally entitled just Quarry in Japan. Originally came from the arcade game that SNK did. Pretty rapidly, I think within a year or something like that. It came on the Spectrum and Commodore and stuff as well. But on the Amstrad, it was unbelievable. What a fantastic arcade conversion it was. It was colourful. It scrolled nicely. All the fighting elements were there. The helicopters, the bombs, the strategy. Ralph and Clark, present as ever. The 2-player mode. Obviously, the first arcade game was famous for its rotary joystick. It didn't have that, of course, in the Amstrad, but you had the 8-way direction. It was such a fun game to play. Its sequel wasn't great. I don't know why. The Victory Road was its sequel, I believe, and for some reason it just lost its little bit of magic that Quarry Warriors had. Terrible, absolutely terrible loading screen, as you can see. Awful. I don't know why the loading screen was that bad, even drawn by a 4-year-old apparently. Blind 4-year-old. But the game itself, fantastically programmed, excellently executed, graphics just unbelievable, music and sound effects all present and correct, and it was just the first of one of what you could say, oh, the Amstrad can do an arcade conversion that is faithful to the original, and that's what I love about it. So going on to my number 7 pick. And a lot of Spectrum fans will be nodding along when I say this, and it's Renegade. Now, Renegade, based off the arcade game of the same name, another one of these games which transferred to the 8-bits spectacularly, especially on the Amstrad and the Spectrum. And the Amstrad version had all the colour and the blood, if you know the cheat to put in, because it was turned blue. Censorship was starting to rain on us at that point, so when you punch them on the floor and knock them out, they would spill blood out in the original arcade. And it would be blue on the Amstrad for some reason. But you could put a cheat in and that would change the colour to red. Ah, we preempted the Mega Drive Mortal Kombat cheat, weren't we? But it was one of those scrolling fighters. I suppose you could call Renegade a scrolling. More like a flick screen fighter. Beat 'em up. And it just worked. It worked so well. The controls were really good. If you got used to them, we'll come on to that in a minute, because of the way they were implemented. The original arcade had 3 buttons: jump, kick and punch, and the Amstrad and the Commodore versions copied that. So the keyboard was your punch, kick and jump, and the joystick was your control. That was a bit awkward for some people, and they couldn't get on with it. I got on with it eventually. I did get used to it, and I would kick ass on that game. I really would. All the moves were there: the back kick, the punches, the ducks, the flying kicks, the movement. The graphics were just and the theme music, synonymous with the game, just synonymous with the game. I must admit, the control system on the Spectrum version is probably a little bit better for the home market. I will say that about that, but that's just the port. You know, if you want to go faithful to the arcade, then the Amstrad version was spot on. And yeah, Renegade, just another one of the greatest arcade conversions onto the Amstrad. So what was that? That was number 7, was it? Yes. So we'll move on to my number 6 pick. So this is P-47, the Freedom Fighter, or sometimes known as P-47 Thunderbolt. And it's a scrolling shoot 'em up, and it was one of the first scrolling shoot 'em ups on the Amstrad that I played that I thought, wow, just wow, that's how you do it. Sod your fucking Nemesis, Gradius, even R-Type. I know I love R-Type, but Amstrad version is not the best. Not worse, it's not terrible, but not the best. I always say that. It's my mantra. But P-47 is just colourful, it's noisy, it's in your face, it's brash, and it's faithful to the arcade. 8 levels of just joy. 8 levels of craziness, 8 levels of blasting mayhem. It sounds great, it looks great, it plays great, it scrolls well. It's one of the best shoot 'em ups on the Amstrad, bar none. And that's all I really can say about it, just one of the best. So we're now going on to... So now we'll go on to pick number 5. And my fifth pick is again another arcade conversion. Can you see a theme running here? There's lots of arcade conversions here. When the Amstrad done an arcade conversion correctly, it did it really well. When it did it badly, it did it really badly. Hence, Pit Fighter. You get what I'm going here on that. But my fifth pick is Golden Axe. The Sega classic of Death Adder being a bastard, basically, and Axe Battler and Gilius Thunderhead, and of course Tyrus Flare going to kick his bony ass. And I first saw the screenshots of Golden Axe in Amstrad action, of how it was going to look on the Amstrad, and I thought, wow, it does look good. It really does look good, because I was a massive fan of the arcade game. And it looked really good. It was colourful. You could see what it was. It wasn't one of these watered down games that they were going to fuck it up. It didn't like that. I mean, and when I bought it, and they loaded it up, and you get the skeleton with the hands. You love that. You love that from the arcade, and a different version of the theme music, but really well done as well. Yes, it was multi-load, so it took time, but when you got playing with it, it was great. The lack of sound effects in the game, the lack of music in the game was something that pissed me off, but it just looked fantastic. It played just like, obviously it was a little bit more jerky, and the frame rate wasn't nowhere near as good, and the animation wasn't nowhere near as good, but the moves were all there. All the moves were there, the enemies were all there, the levels were all there. And that's what I wanted, and that's what I got. And it was golden. It was golden on the Amstrad. It was Golden Axe, and that's what I wanted. It was brilliant. And I remember playing it a lot. I thought, how far can I get in this version to compare it to the arcade version, which I could complete several times over. And I did eventually complete it and got to how the mechanics work a little bit differently. Of course, they always do on an 8-bit, but another fantastic arcade conversion. So now we're up to number 4. Huh? So my number 4 pick is Prehistoric II. Now this game came out very late in the Amstrad CPC life cycle, 1993 if you will, sir. And it shows because it's extremely detailed. Graphically, it's unprecedented. I think it's one of those games that pushes the machine to the maximum. If not the maximum, then very close to it. And there's several different versions for it. There's a 64K version, there's the Plus version, and there's also a 128K version as well. And it's a simple platform game, really, but you play as the caveman, and you go clubbing animals around the head, and picking up pickups like food and stuff, just to complete to the end of level bosses, which are all very Earthworm Jim-like, humorous, crazy, wild, far-out bosses. And it's just a very atmospheric game. It's got a wonderful intro title sequence. Should I say loading screen? I mean, the loading screen, it looks like something from the Amiga or the ST. That's how good it is, especially on the Plus machines, when they've added the extra colours and everything. But the original game was just fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. And Prehistoric II is one of them hallmark games in the Amstrad life cycle where this is the machine, and this is what it can do. and fuck me, wow. Basically, that's it. It's not old school, given its name. Prehistoric, no, it's bloody not. Anyway, move on to my third pick of my favourite Amstrad CPC games. Now, I gave myself a rule in this list that I would only pick one game from each franchise. Now, I could have picked probably 3 or 4 games from this franchise, one of my favourite franchises. Yeah, not that you haven't seen me talk about it before. I've got a whole fucking playlist for it. Hey, look up there. But let's say the man, the egg, the legend that is Dizzy. And more specifically, Dizzy 3. Fantasy World Dizzy is my favourite of the entries of it. Now, the first game was fantastic, the second game was probably even better but bloody harder, but the third game for me got the balance perfect. It had the menu system, they introduced that, the length of the adventure was proper, it was correct, it wasn't overly long, you didn't get bored with it, the puzzles were really intriguing, there were secret rooms. It had everything, and there was 2 ways of completing it. Of course, you get all the coins, you go back to Daisy, and you get the little celebration heart thing at the end. It was perfection as far as I'm concerned when it comes to Dizzy, and I think one of the Olivers agrees with me on that. They think it's one of their favourite Dizzies as well as Fantasy World Dizzy. And it also spawned the cover art that is used a lot for Dizzy games, one with him holding the telescope with the dragon in the background, and that image. It's probably one of my most famous images when it comes to Dizzy as well, with the dragon in the background, spitting the fire, Dizzy jumping out of the way at the last minute. So, out of all the Dizzy games, if you're going to hold a knife to my throat and say, that's the only Dizzy game you can have, it would be Fantasy World Dizzy, and that's Dizzy 3. So, moving on to my number 2 pick. Ooh, number 2! And this is another arcade conversion. And it's a game that basically, recently had a reinvigoration. Invigoration? That's not even a word. Should I say reinvigorating renaissance on the PlayStation 4. And that's Gauntlet. The legendary Gauntlet. Me and my brother must have played this so much. I always used to be on the keys because he would refuse to not use the keys for some reason. He insisted on the joystick. And I gave in. Like a twat. Anyway. But when I did get to play it solitary, I would play with the joystick. And normally always as the wizard for some reason, even though he's the weakest in unarmed combat. But the range and power on his fire was much better. And it's the dungeon crawler, the classic dungeon crawler. Everybody knows Gauntlet. Everybody knows the theme music to it. I just love that bit where you go into a cell, you go into the next dungeon, it's... Love that. Love that. It's chills. And you know what? If it was one of those games where if I had no idea what to play, and I was like, what should I play this? Should I play that? You know what? I could always stick on Gauntlet and be happy and play Gauntlet. So that's why it's number 2. It's right up there. And another fantastic arcade conversion. What is it with these arcade conversions? Is number 1 going to be an arcade conversion? You're fucking right, it is. It's number 1. So number 1 is Miami Vice clone themselves. It's just one of the best arcade conversions ever, I think. And this goes for the Spectrum fans as well. Spectrum fans are going to be nodding along and shaking. Yes, I approve, Novabug. I do approve, even though you are an Amstrad fan, I approve. Chase HQ. And wow, it's I didn't know I was still playing on Amstrad when I played this game. I thought that how have Ocean done this? It's so fucking good. It moves so well. It looks so good. It sounds so good. It's just, apart from the cutscene bit, which you don't get unfortunately on the Amstrad version, it's just the 128K version is just, and it's got the speech, the movement, the mechanics. The cars, yes, their sprite scrolling is a little bit off now and then, but it's such a picky thing to look at when you look at how fast it moves and how smooth it moves. For an Amstrad, this is an Amstrad we're talking about, and Ocean just pulled genius out of their arses when they made Chase HQ for the Amstrad. It was just unbelievable. The colours are vivid. Everything is there. You just know it's Chase HQ, and it's superior to the PC Engine version. A lot of people will say it's superior to the ST version, and we're not even going to talk about the Commodore 64 version because that was garbage, and everyone knows it's garbage. Sorry, Commodore fans, you know it's garbage. But you've got Outrun on us. Outrun on the Commodore's great. Outrun on the Amstrad is crap. But we're not going to talk about Outrun. We're going to talk about Chase HQ, and I loved the arcade machine, and when it came out in the Amstrad I thought it can't be as good as the arcade. It's not as good, of course it isn't, but it's bloody close. It really is close, and I know Spectrum fans agree with me on this. The version they got on the Spectrum is also utterly fantastic, in monochrome it is, but it's fantastic. So there you go, that is my top 11 Amstrad CPC games. I'm going to make a few honorary mentions here. I didn't quite squeeze in. This is probably to do with the fact that I didn't play them a lot back in the day, but I knew they were really, really good. One of them I did play a lot. So we're going to do Heads Up to Robocop, because Robocop was a really, really good conversion of the arcade as well. Great theme music, it really was, and very, very well done. Another arcade conversion. Grisor is another one we're gonna shoot out there. Again, a lot of Amstrad fans say it's one of the finest games on the Amstrad, probably the very best on the Amstrad. I don't agree. I think Chase HQ is, and I think them 11, the 10 before Chase HQ are better as well for personal reasons, gameplay reasons. Grisor is fantastic. It is a fantastic game. It lacks scrolling, but that's the Amstrad for you. Flick screen, but it looks great, sounds great, plays great. Contra for you other people around the world. Grisor is Contra. It's the same game kind of thing. And finally, Operation Wolf. Operation Wolf's port on the Amstrad is excellent. It's far superior to Operation Thunderbolt, which came after it on the Amstrad, and the GX4000, which is basically the same game, hardly altered, maybe colours a bit. But Operation Wolf just played better, it looked better, it sounded better. and more familiar and faithful to the arcade. So them three are just honorary mentions there. If it could be a top 14, them three would be in that order on the bottom, but it's not. It's top 11. I'm Novabug and I do top 11s, and that was my top 11 Amstrad CPC games. Let me know what you think, whether you agree, whether you disagree, and what would your top 11 Amstrad CPC games be? I'm starting to crash. It's all getting too much for me. Oh no! Not really. Cheers. Thanks for watching this top 11, and I'll be back with another top 11 very soon, because all these top 11s are going to come at you and evolve in different forms and formats and visual style and presentation, because that's how we like it on the Novabug channel. The top 11s aren't going to be like Watch Fucking Mojo and all the standard of this and this and this. All top 11s are going to be differently done and differently presented. If you want. Novabug out.